if you have like a communications person and it's a by the way to you, I mean, the funding is also by the way to you. I keep on saying, if you're not findable, you're not funded.
So, Bata, in your opinion, what is the role of a communications person?
A communications officer is not a personal assistant, is not a web developer, is not a press officer, is not a media officer, is not a social media officer, is not a photographer, is not a videographer, is not an editor, is not an audio producer. The mistake that we make is that we bunch all these roles into one person. If an organization is able to have 20 programs managers, why don't you have a communications department?
How did you get into communications full time?
This, and I don't think I've even shared this before with anyone, but I actually went into communications by accident.
Welcome to the first ever episode of the Salvage podcast. And today we're going to talk about development communications. Our first guest is one that you have probably seen on social media. He has done some rants about communications and the misconceptions around it. And today I thought, what better person to host than him? He's going to tell us what's happening in the profession, what we are not getting right, and what you should know as a communications profession. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Edwina. It's a pleasure being the first ever guest of the Salvage podcast. Of course, this is a milestone. I'll have to write about it sometime. But I'm Ibrahim Batambuze. You can just call me Bata. I'm a strategic communications advisor, mentor. I've been a recruiter, I've been a project manager, I've been an advisor in a couple of things. And it gives me a great honor to always be talking about something that I'm passionate about, which is development communications and the rants of all communications people. Thank you so much, Edwina.
Welcome, Bata.
Thank you.
So Bata has been around the scene. He's done this thing before. And when I thought, what better person to start the Salvage podcast? I thought Bata is just the right person because we will not rant a lot, but we are going to talk about your pains and grits as a development communications professional. We'll talk about those challenges that you face, those things where at times when you second guess yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right profession? And I know some of us have felt like quitting sometimes. There are people who have been battling many illnesses brought by their careers, but we're going to talk about that, so stick around. You need to subscribe and see more of this content. So Bata, tell me about yourself for people who do not know you, the people who haven't seen those runs, and I don't know how they might have missed them if you're in the industry, but tell us about yourself.
I have been in this space for about 15 years for now. I'm a lawyer by profession. But I made a very big career shift to comms, and it was coming off natural for me right from law school. So when I left law school, by then I was writing articles in newspapers. I was a blogger. I was very big on digital communications. In 2016 presidential elections, I was actually one of the people on a candidate's communications team. And it's been a journey of learning, of failure, and of stress, big stress. And for anyone that has been doing communications will be able to understand this. But I would say I'm a strategic communications advisor. I have been mentoring a couple of young people within the profession. But I would say I am a self-taught, but most importantly, mentored communications professional. That is one of the key things. Probably we'll get into the conversation later, but it goes back to the point that we, in this world, must believe in something. And for me, one of the beliefs that I have is that when communications and public relations, let me even just say strategic communications in general, because it encompasses all these other different things within the pillars of communications. if communications is done right,
Yeah.
there is a lot of impact that can happen out of
Absolutely.
this.
Absolutely.
And I believe, for me, that is one of the biggest contributions that I have. I've tried to speak a lot about communications. I've been grateful that some of the people that I've worked with understand communications.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very grateful that I have made a lot of impact when it comes to using communications as a tool for development.
That's
So
true.
briefly, that is who I am.
Okay. And when at the beginning we talked about development communications, and the people who are in the development communications industry, but they don't know, am I in development communications? Am I in corporate communications? Am I in health communications? And I think we'll dissect that further as with more episodes. But briefly, how will you know that you are a development communications professional or you are doing development communications? So if you are strategically using communication to drive social impact or sustainable development in any area, so you could actually be in the private sector, but the private sector, as their CSR, they are doing a project which is impacting the community, which is a give back or anything that's supposed to create change or development in communities,
Yeah,
then you are a development communications professional.
absolutely.
But you talked about you are privileged to work with people who understand communications. We're going to get into that. But first tell me, how did you said you studied law.
Yeah.
So how do you now get into communications full time?
This, and I don't think I've even shared this before with anyone, but I actually went into communications by accident.
Wow.
And in summary, it was because there was a conference that was happening, it was a dialogue.
Okay.
The person was supposed to go and write a blog
Yes.
was lazy that morning.
Okay.
And one of my mentors, actually.
Yeah.
So this is what happened. So she calls me and tells me, hey, but I've been given this money to go and there's a dialogue happening at National Water and Sewage Corporation Center. They have a conference center in Bogolovi. And she told me, I am lazy, it's raining, it's cold. Can you just go and cover for me? So by then, I was waiting graduation in law school, because there was a time when you're done with studies and you're just waiting. And by then I was a blogger. I was among the people making a lot of noise. By then WordPress was a thing and everyone was a blogger in the city. So I was like, I used to write a lot of things. So I come, she calls me. I was like, okay. I was just watching movies that day and I was like, it's fine. So I take a taxi from Mukono. That's where my hostel was. I was at UCU.
Oh, yeah.
So I travel to Bugolovi. I go to National Water. And there's this dialogue. And it was about child marriages. Now, I just got to the workshop, to the dialogue. And something hit me for the first time in my life that I never noticed at all. So I entered this dialogue as conversations are happening. So they say the next person on. So it was a time when they were giving stories and victims. So they bring out a lady, a young girl. She was 13 years old and she was the world's youngest grandmother.
No way. At 13?
13. She was from Butaleja. I thought I didn't hear that well. And okay, so I just pause and say, okay, what did you say? Now, this is a 13-year-old girl who was a child. I had never heard of something like that in my life. And previously, I was in politics, and I was even very active in student politics. I was even a prime minister at some point at UCU. I had never thought I could hear of anyone below 18 years pregnant. So I sat down. That day was a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah.
So I go back. I think I spent the whole night. I wrote a blog and questioning the whole system, questioning myself. I was saying, like, yeah, I've been blinded with politics, thinking all is about democracy and politicians and elections, yet there are actually things on ground that are happening that we're actually foregoing.
Yeah.
So I write it. I publish it. So 2 days after that, I received a call from someone. They said, "Hey, we read your blog. We loved it, and we want to invite you. Just have a chat." So may I just go to the organization that organized the event, and yeah, they asked me, "How come we have never seen someone write us something like this?" And
So
I was like,
beautiful,
"Oh,"
yeah.
I was like, I was just told them everything. I was like, I was experiencing this for the first time, so I just had to put all my emotions and everything on paper. And so they tell me, "Oh yeah, thank you so much. We loved it. And do you want to write more about this?" I was like, "Yeah, of course, it's fine." So they take me to a community dialogue, and I see a lot of more stories. I was like, "Oh my God, there's just a lot of things that are happening outside Kampala that needs to be talked about." So I write more. They now ask me, "By the way, we have a position here. Someone is a partnerships, mobilizations, and communications officer," which is something we might probably talk about later. And they told me that we don't think she's doing a good job. We want you to come and support it. So I told them, "Come on.
Always.
For starters, you set up this person to fail.
Yeah.
Like you're doing all this kind of you expect a lot from her, but this is not what she's supposed to be doing."
Yes.
So I was like, "No way. Like, if you want me to come in and support, let me just handle communications and just try to distribute." And I'm so glad that they listened.
Yeah.
So I just moved with the flow, started doing communications. Now, by that point, I was just doing communications on vibes, speaking on TV, writing blogs, and all these things. And I didn't know that there's actually a lot of things that comes with being a communications person.
Yes.
So I started going on YouTube. I started going on Coursera. I started going on EDX, all these platforms that do short courses. That's when I actually started learning things to do, like writing press releases, writing op-eds and commentaries and stuff like that. So as I move along, I speak to them and tell them, "You know what? There's actually a lot, and one person can't do all these things."
Yeah.
And I tell them,
So you're now
yes,
telling management. You're
yeah,
telling
I'm
them
telling management.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful because the person who I was working under that as a chief of staff understands communications. And I tell him, like, we need more people. I can't handle this. And the organization is growing.
Yes.
So I tell them we need a digital person that can handle social media platforms. We need a designer because if you're trying to sell people this vision, it has to be very professional. We need someone who is good at writing. We need someone who can be able to sit down and they're good with media.
So you are now dissecting the department.
The communications department.
Yes.
And I can be as the head of the department to supervise and look after and check in and know that actually that post went up on social media. The person is speaking to the press. We have the designer doing whatever is needed to be done. And my case was, if we have all this specialization happening, we are going to win as an organization.
That's true.
The rest is history.
That's true. Oh wow. So so you talked about you had a chief of staff who understood communications. What do you mean by that?
Wow. I think I've achieved so much in this life because of that one person, because he was one of my earliest mentors.
Okay.
And this is one person that had worked with all these startups across the country and even across the region. And he had been exposed to working with departments and people. So this one person knew that me as Bat, I have strengths, but I have weaknesses.
Yes.
That doesn't mean I'm bad
Yes.
or I can't do my job. What that means, how can we ensure that we focus on this person's strengths, probably as a leader,
Yes.
and fix his weaknesses
By
filling
them.
in
Yes.
spaces of people that can do. Because as we are growing as an institution, we won't rely on one person.
That's true.
If we continue like this, there's going to be burnout. And you can't, for example, say we have a dialogue in Arua and we have a conference at Serena and you have an event in Ginger, and you have the digital campaigns,
Yes.
that one person is not going to run all these things at
Absolutely.
once. And that person always understood this.
Yeah.
And what it actually did is that when all this was going on, it actually made your institution realize that, oh, if we spread out all this, we are going to have specialized people that will get enough time to, number one, research. Number two, give it all they can.
Okay.
And number three, sit down and even evaluate what is working, what
What's
is not
not
working.
working.
And that is how I've always believed you need to understand communications.
That is
And that
true.
is what they did.
Yeah. So I think organizations, first of all, need to have the leaders, need to have people who understand communications.
Absolutely.
Before we get into what communications is. So, Bata, in your opinion, what is the role of a communications person? But before we even get into that, there's been many cries, and just like you were ranting on your platform, a communications person is not a media officer, is not a web designer, is not all this. What does a communications person do?
I'll try to simplify it and also talk about who that communications person is not. A communications person's role is spread out, number one, by how big the institution is.
That's true.
And that's a very big starting point.
Yes.
And number two, how is the organization investing in communications? And number three, what investments are you putting into that person themselves? If you take a one from that, you've failed. If you get all the three right, you're actually on the right path. And a communications person from experience
Yes.
is a coordinator. A coordinator who is able to understand that this is what is needed as an institution. This is how we need to do it. And the differentiation of how you need to do it, that's when the roles of a communications person comes in. I'll give you an example. So, for example, you are an institution and you have 20 projects.
Okay.
You don't have you don't need to have a communications officer. You need to have a department.
That's true.
The point here is that if an organization is able to have project officers, there needs to be a communications officer who is attached to a project.
Thank you.
If an organization is able to have 20 programs managers, why don't you have a communications department and a team? Because you need to understand that all these are different roles that are needed. The biggest mistake that organizations and institutions make is that they feel they understand who a communications person is,
That's true.
but they don't sit down to write all these roles. Probably no one has met them to understand who that person is. But I'll summarize by saying a communications officer is not a personal assistant, is not a web developer, is not a press officer, is not a media officer, is not a social media officer, is not a photographer, is not a videographer, is not an editor, is not an audio producer.
Yeah.
The mistake that we make is that we bunch all these roles into one person.
Yeah.
You're trying to make a communications person be an agency. It will never work.
That's true.
And that is where we need to be having the conversations of who exactly is a communications officer. We need to move away from the point of just copying and pasting job descriptions from the internet by not even sitting down and say, these are our needs as an organization. This is what we need to do. I might pretend to be good at Canva, for example, but as an institution is growing, you need someone who's specifically good at design to handle all that.
That's true.
And
they'll need more than Canva.
Exactly. They'll need this Adobe suits and all these things that are happening. I mean, where we are going, we might even need to have communications people on the team that understand artificial intelligence.
That's true.
That's a whole dynamic that is coming up. You
Yeah.
won't get all that in one person. The same way you cannot have a human resource officer doing the work of a programs manager is the same way you can't have a communications officer doing the job of a web developer.
That's true.
Full stop.
Or the same way you cannot have a program manager for education, for the different programs that you have. Because as a communications person, I think these programs also have different outcomes.
Absolutely.
And they need to be followed. They need to be strictly from start to finish. They need to be documented. There's so many things to follow through.
Yeah.
And one person, I'm not sure if one person can do that.
I think it all goes back to the point whereby communications department, in most cases, by default, is a by the way department.
That's true.
And why am I saying by the way department? Just sample any organization, of course, not naming names,
Yes.
but you will be able to understand that you get a communications person and you bundle them somewhere into research department.
Thank you.
And it's a component. You have programs department and you have a communications officer somewhere at the bottom of the department.
Advocacy.
It's been exactly, and it's always merged with communications and advocacy officer, which is actually completely different.
Yes.
If we are going back to the roles and descriptions of what these people need to be doing,
Yes.
they're all totally different.
Yeah.
And I think when we're starting, I told you I've been blessed to be working for organizations that understand this. From Uganda, from South Africa, from my current employers, communications departments are different. And what has always been tick is that a communications department always has someone on the senior management team.
That's true.
And how that has been helpful is that if you have someone on a senior management team, that person is actually going to help and see that if you're writing a proposal, there is a budget for communications. You're not going to say that you have this project proposal you've written, you've sent, and before you start implementing, you tell communications people that this is what we need to achieve. You didn't consult them from the start.
Yeah.
And that is when you want them to send you photos they took from their iPhones and Androids and Infinix to submit them in New York.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
They'll look at you as being very unserious.
Yeah.
And you'll come and say, you're not doing your job as a communications person. And I'm like, look here, you're not investing and you're expecting returns.
Yeah.
How are you expecting? I'm not a robot. I
Yeah.
don't have magic all over my ancestors to come and do things for me.
Yeah.
I'm human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that is where, and that's the point that it always goes back to.
That's true. And I think, so I've heard from many colleagues who share some of their stories. So some say they're not involved in program design. And when it comes to implementation, they're just thrown into the deep end.
They are not following.
And then when it comes to, let's say the program is facing some issues with the funder, we are not getting good reports. You guys are not documenting well. You're not getting the success stories. The success stories are not speaking to the goals and objectives of this project. But they were not involved in the project design.
Yeah.
Number two, when they were doing the design and they wanted to, trying to balance the monies, the first line they cut was communications. So they have no money, but they're telling them, improvise. You go and speak to program people and see how you can manage. So time for documenting, which can happen in different ways. Photography, writing the stories, maybe videography, the audiovisual. And they tell them they can use their phones, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And which all these things are going back to the funder, the one who gave them this money. And when they backfire, they still come back to the communications person. You did not do enough visibility for this project. So what can a comms person do? And many times they'll end up doing the firefighting. Suddenly the money comes. They'll have money to get, the good equipment so that they can go to the field and cover these things.
Yeah.
And usually that happens towards project end, or maybe they're trying to redeem the project.
Yeah.
And they're working within little time. So that means that there's time constraints.
Yeah.
They are handling many other things. So this person is also handling different projects. This is not the only project they're looking at. So maybe there's an event somewhere, but we're trying to redeem this project. So they have to go to the field. what can this person do? There is someone out there, I'm sure. So what advice would you give this person who is experiencing this?
I feel that there are a lot of development communications professionals going to watch this podcast and episode, and they'll break down
Yeah.
because they know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's always heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And they always feel they're not seen, and they
Yeah.
feel that nothing is being done.
Yeah.
But to answer that question, I think I'll just relate with this proverb from my region that we always use. I'll just try to attempt to say it in English. And it says, the fish starts rotting from the head. You don't expect any change from someone at the bottom when the top is already dead. So meaning any change that you expect to make or achieve needs to start from the top. Before you start telling a communications person that do your job, have you done your job as a head of the institution to make the work that they do very easy for them? Or you're just going to dump all these things that you don't know onto them, and you expect miracles coming from them. Because it is one thing having a project or work for a communications person, and it is another thing showing them what is needed. One of the biggest things that I stand with is that most of our jobs we don't get enough onboarding
That's true.
as young professionals.
Yeah.
So we just get thrown into the deep end and expect results.
Yes.
Even I've seen very many organizations and people that very many workers don't even know the culture of the institution. So we mess a lot by not breaking it down for them. And what should then a communications person do? One is to attempt to explain to your bosses. Because one thing from experience as a manager that I've seen is that I've dealt with very many EDs and executives, and they actually don't know what a job description for a communications person is until I explain to them. Of course, I might be talking from a privileged point of view because I've worked in institutions where they understand communications. But at a certain time, you also need to know that you need to try to explain to them. If you fear explaining to them, show them this podcast and they'll sit in and listen in.
Thank you.
Because they might pick out a thing or two.
Yeah.
And it also goes back to the point like when I started doing all these videos about communications, I was receiving calls from EDs to come and speak to their staff
Really?
about communications. Even the communications people themselves were telling me, but can you please come and explain to my ED because
That's
they're not
true.
understanding.
Yes.
I walked into one of them and explained to them, and they now have a department from
Okay.
one person to now 4 people.
That's nice.
And it is doing very well
Okay.
because they are able to send out newsletters in time. They design all the graphic stuff that they needed. They have very beautiful reports. They have very thought out communications posts, and they even get time to support the ED
Yeah.
on their personal brand, which would not have been possible
Yeah.
having to dump all these things into one person. We forget that people even have life outside work, and you're burying them into this work whereby they're not giving it their thought. What will happen? Burnout. I've had instances whereby people have left their jobs because they're like, at the end of the day, what's the point? Let me just go sit back, become a housewife because there is nothing fulfillment in terms of the job. But one thing that I keep on telling my fellow communications people is that away from all these other different professions, I've never seen a dynamic profession like strategic communications. Everything that they taught you in class is not what is on ground.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. Well, because for me, I switched from legal practice and came into communication. So I taught myself a lot of these things, like how do you run an institution in terms of comms. How do you do this and that? And it was until I looked at the curriculum and of some of the institutions and what they teach in at what they teach at school, and I was like, oh boy, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it explains why I have had people come into the departments that I've worked in with master's degree and they can't do
And they're
work.
not delivering.
And they are not a problem. With communications, you need to be a strategic thinker. You need to be a critical thinker. You need to be as innovative as possible. You won't achieve all this when you're doing all these roles as one person. You need to break it down to be able to understand that what was relevant in 2023,
May not.
it won't be relevant in 2025.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. 2023, we are so good at Facebook
Yes.
and all this platform. Where is it in 2025? What platforms should you be on as a communications person? We were also even in 2012, 13, 14, 15, I mean, you will just be a random communications person. But if you're a communications manager at this point and you don't even have a personal website, you're doing a disservice to your career. These are some of the key things that they don't even teach in school.
That's true.
But in practice. So in simple terms, a communications person, I would conclude by saying, number one, I see you, I see everything that you're doing, and I want to assure you that even if some people do not understand what you're doing, that is not your problem. You need to keep pushing. You need to be innovative as possible. You need to be trusting the process, because you'll find that institution that can be able to understand your work as a communications person. And when they value you, you are actually going to love the kind of work that you're doing the same way I do love it right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bata. And I think just to re-emphasize what you just said, the question was, what should a communications person facing these challenges do? And Bata just said, one, you need to be bold. Walk to your bosses, and tell them how you feel. And you don't have to be aggressive, but initiate these conversations. Talk to your immediate supervisor, and if you're not responding, or like Bata says, if you don't understand the role of a communications person, go to the next person. And if, like he said, when a fish starts rotting from the head, what happens, Bata? It is gone. It is gone. So then you might have to reinvent yourself. What does this mean? He talked about, as a comms person, why don't you have platforms for yourself? Why aren't you speaking about yourself somewhere? And the beauty about the world today is if you are not being given a platform, create your own platform. You see, you are being told to do social media for the organization, and but you're not, maybe at some point you want to boast, you're not being helped, you're busy with any other work. Create your own and dedicate your life to them, and see how they're going to see that grow, and they'll want it for their organization. And you know what happens? They'll ask you, how are you doing this? And then that will be creating a platform for you to table your demands. Thank you. So now, Bata, we have talked about the challenges that these people face, and we are telling them to be bold, to reinvent themselves and create their own platforms. But there are people who have actually tried. And getting a job is not easy. I have gotten this car job, and they are paying me this little money. I really cannot afford to confront my boss. I have done all I can. I am active on my socials. I really want my organization's platforms to also just be as big, but I am not being supported. They're not believing in me. So that means there's an issue with the head of this fish. So now let's speak to the head of this fish. What do you have to say to them?
Just to be clear, you're talking about
the management,
yes,
the leaders of these organizations. We need to speak with them. What do you have to say to them? The ones who do not appreciate the role of communications.
I'll speak from the point where I'm very unapologetic about comms, and the point where I say, you're the one killing the institution if you don't invest in your communications. You've tried to focus on all these other different departments, but you keep forgetting that in 2025, actually communications needs to be your strongest department in an organization. And I'll give you an example. I used to work for some organizations and we were trying to look for funding and stuff like that. And I can tell you it was because of their investments in communications that the institutions kept on growing. Why? Because they tried to make sure that everyone sees that they're different from the rest. That difference was in how they write simple things as newsletters, simple things as their EDs being fronted as authorities within their fields.
So personal branding
For the EDs is very important.
So, and that's something that's being talked about lately.
Yes.
But we get into that.
Yes. And key things like investing in your platforms, knowing that right now it's no longer 1999, whereby you're only going to speak when you travel to Europe. You need to have things like the website. These social media platforms keep on evolving and changing every day. One thing they'll never take away from you as an organization is a website.
Yes.
And it needs to be very much updated. Because if someone goes to the internet and searches and see that your website is very good, first of all, that's the first impression. Then you need to ensure that everything that your communications team is doing is actually up to date. That only starts by you investing in it. If you have a communications team and it's by that point, you don't even have a team. If you have like a communications person and it's a by the way to you, I mean, the funding is also by the way to you. I keep on saying, if you're not findable, you're not fundable. And that can only happen when you invest in your communications. For example, everyone is on their phones right now.
Yes.
Everyone has an email. That means that your biggest aspect for strategic communication is a newsletter.
Yes.
Someone is going to open their email first thing in the morning and they see your email.
Yes.
They see a newsletter. How have you written it? They remember you're fighting for attention. So how have you created the content for them to be able to see? That is if you're trying to look for funding, and for a funder to know that you're actually different, give them value that they will be able to say that, oh, by the way, there is this organization somewhere deep in Uganda. Looks like they're doing their work well. Look at the kind of work they're doing. I used to work in an organization whereby there were non-negotiables, which included every year the annual report has to be turned into a video.
Wow.
Every year we need to have a profile for that organization.
So the profile was a living document.
A living document.
It was not, okay, this is who we are.
No.
From start to...
No, it was not about who we are.
Yes.
It is about, that video talks about your why as an organization.
Okay.
And that why, it's focusing on what you're doing on ground. How are you doing it? As a result of you doing that, this is what is happening. And for us, we were never even preparing documents for our ED. If he's going into a fundraising drive in Europe, he just plays that video. That is enough branding for the organization. Because why? We ensure that every activity that we have, there has to be a professional photographer. Every activity, we have to have a video highlight. Every activity where we have a funder, we have to ensure that we document it. Every engagement, every milestone that we have, we document it in comms. And that saved us a lot of work. And that is where we were able, I mean, for me, even time used to, when the organization I used to work with, and I was now part of the senior management as comms, now my role was to see what is my ED talking about. I would not have achieved that if I was just doing everything as a person.
That's true.
I had a team that was responsible for social media. My role was to just sit down at the end of the day and say, has this been done? Tick. Has this been done? Tick. This hasn't happened. Why has it not happened? So I used to now focus on ensuring that I support my ED to ensure that, number one, they're the biggest authority in that field. The easier the moment you do that, your job as a communications person is going to be very, very easy. And if your ED's LinkedIn page is by the way, you're losing out. And that is your role as a communications manager, not an officer.
Yes.
Because now you have to break down all these roles. So my call for all institutions is to give communications a shot. Give your communications department a chance. I want you, if you're watching this Salvage podcast, to just call your communications person and ask them this thing. Number one, are we providing you with enough skills or a platform to do your job well? Number two, how can we support you to ensure that you do your job very well? And number three, where do you think we are not doing right? And from your advice as a communications professional, you want us to do. That is going to change everything for your organization if you listen to it. That it looks to be simple, but that is magic. Ask yourself those three questions, and I promise you, your organization, if you take their responses right, you're going to move a very big step. And you'll sit back 1 year down the road, and you'll even be changing the budgets from programs to comms.
That's true. The focus will come to communications once you prioritize communications as a department. But you talk, as we wrap up, you said if an organization is not findable, it is not fundable. So now there are genuinely some organizations which have very low budgets. They could be CBOs, which are just starting, whereas we also have these other bigger ones. Now, in the CBOs, yes, they're still trying to, and you know that the funding landscape is quite, changing. It's changing and it's a bit tricky. There's some funding that's being cut. And then when it comes to the international NGOs, there's a scramble. Where does this funding go? Which country should be priority? So, the ones where there's a constraint, what are the low-hanging fruits for the comms person there? And let's start with the comms officer, the one who is not yet bold enough to walk to their boss. What are the low-hanging fruits? For example, for social media, what social media should they prioritize? And how do they know the one to prioritize? So just as takeaways, the comms officers, what are the low-hanging fruits? Where should they start to navigate this very bumpy career?
This may come off as controversial and unpopular, but if your organization is below 3 years, you need to be on one social media platform. Why? You've not figured where you're going yet. So if you have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Snapchat, and all these things, TikTok, I mean, why are you on all those platforms? It's going to be challenging for that one person to run all these platforms. You need to focus. For example, the institution that I work with at this point, despite having huge budgets, despite us being a global alliance, we have only one social media platform, LinkedIn, full stop. And we have 5 communications people. And all of us have our guns on that page, and that page is very big. We are over 10 years. So if you're even starting and you're even like less than 3 years, why are we all over the place? Please specialize. And I know it would come off as pressure from even the management, like they want to be everywhere.
Yes.
But what you need to embrace is strategic communications. Number one, ask yourself, Who is our target audience?
Yeah.
If your target audience is funders, what are you doing on TikTok?
Yeah.
If your target audience is young people, what are you doing on Facebook? If your
Yes.
target audience is corporates, you should be on X.
Yes.
If your target audience is this and that, ask yourself, where is the person I'm speaking to stationed? That is going to be the easiest way. And for you as a communications person, it's going to save your job. A lot of the time, you will focus on the engagement that you're getting. You'll focus on all these kinds of engagements and reach, and you'll be able to navigate yourself. Of course, the website is a complete must. It's compulsory. Like whether you want it or not, that's your number one point of visibility, even if you are CBO. And for this time, it's very, very easy, which brings me to the next point of a low-hanging fruit for you as a communications person. You need to find ways on how you can manipulate, use, improve yourself on the thing called artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Artificial intelligence, when used right, is the biggest support system for a communications officer. And leave alone just the normal. Let me even give you an example as ChatGPT. For example, you need to invest yourself and even pay for the plus version of it.
Yeah.
There is a lot of magic that you can use with that platform. Of course, even all these other different platforms all have chatbots and all have integrated ChatGPT. But even before that, for me, growing as a communications person, there was one platform that even when I had burnout or anything that I feel like I couldn't write anymore or I was out of ideas, there was a website, is still a website called answerthepublic.org. Answer the Public, you could just put in a topic and it gives you over 100 ideas of that topic on what you can do. For example, you're speaking about reusable towels, sanitary towels. It could give you over 30 topics that you could think through in terms of writing. How do you use a reusable sanitary pad? Things to do with how can you clean it, stuff like that. So with artificial intelligence, it can make your work easy. I'm not saying that just go wake up and copy and paste everything that it's telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, who has been working in this space, because one of my former organizations, we are working at the intersection of feminism, technology, and data. I was exposed to artificial intelligence, and I can identify anything written by artificial intelligence.
Oh, wow.
But at the same time, I can fail to identify something that has still been written by artificial intelligence.
What's the difference?
It's very simple. Just go to your LinkedIn. The moment you see someone saying we are thrilled, we're excited with some emojis there at the start, that is already artificial intelligence. And it is becoming monotonous because it is everywhere. And for you as a communications person, this is where it becomes a double-edged sword. If you're not able to use your critical thinking, you're going to fail as a communications person. One thing that you're going to hate is someone using an AI detector and saying 100% of your article is AI written.
Yeah.
And you probably wrote it for your ED.
Yeah. And
it could be ground for firing you.
That's true. And there is this speaking of artificial intelligence, first of all, Bata, you've shot you've had some shots and I think so we are thrilled. So people can no longer use thrilled. You can no longer use some
Excited,
of these words.
So
and emojis all over throughout the text. And I think there's been a discussion on LinkedIn. I see often, the M dash.
Oh my God.
So there's been conversations about, guys, the M dash has been there for some time. Let's not only say, it's when you see the M dash, then it's AI, then it's ChatGPT. So what do you think of that?
I've used them dashes a lot. But right now,
Before?
yes. Because I've been writing for over 10 years.
Yes.
So I know the importance of them dashes.
Yes.
But now I can't even stand them.
Wow.
Because they're everywhere.
Yes.
And before you even move to even the second paragraph, you've seen 4 M dashes in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
And because these AI platforms are trained on this kind of data,
Yes.
the reasoning is the same everywhere.
Yeah.
And it becomes again monotonous. So what should you do as a communications person?
Mm-hmm.
Number one is that yes, nobody is going to stop you from using artificial intelligence,
Yes.
but you don't have to use it the same way Brian from finance is using it.
Yes.
Because you're defeating your purpose as a communications person. Be very good at prompt engineering.
Yes.
Engineer it in a way that you give it a point. Like for me, if I'm using artificial intelligence, I know that I am not going to use the first three options it has given me.
Yes.
I have to dig deeper, look at it, analyze, identify those kind of words, and you're like, no, this is not right. Then rewrite it myself and probably send it back for you to edit, just for grammar. And even if you do, before you go into this using artificial intelligence, I mean, use platforms like Quillbot or even Grammarly for just paraphrase and even edit for you in a better way so that you don't come off the same way everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
We're not going to run away from artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And we are forgetting that we actually think artificial intelligence is ChatGPT. No.
Yeah.
It's a whole big ecosystem which for you as a communications person, you need to interest yourself in. For example, Canva has a fully integrated AI studio. Like you can even do video prompts, you can even do design posters now, website mockups. Those are the different low-hanging fruits for a communications person, nonetheless. So sit down, ask yourself as a communications person, how is AI helping me to do my work, not to replace my work?
Yeah.
The moment you sit down and analyze all that, then say, these are my go-to AI tools. But the more I use them, the more I need to understand that I need to be ethical.
Yes.
I need to understand that this is not replacing my reasoning as a communications person, but just helping me do my work. And all the prompts that I receive from artificial intelligence, I need to first sit down and look at them and analyze if it fits what I want to communicate as a person. So the biggest point for you as a low-hanging fruit is using artificial intelligence. Then two more, lastly, I think this year I've been able to mentor a few young communication professionals. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't look for mentors.
If you're not mentored well.
If you're a communications person and you're 5 years below your career, one of the biggest low-hanging fruit you're going to have is to look for a mentor. Well, sometimes they could be busy, and if you're not able to speak to them, just stalk them. Know that they're speaking at this event. Tune in and listen. Know that they're always writing about these things. Ask yourself, what are they good at? How can I make myself better than them in future? That is going to take you so far, because I went into this field whereby I didn't know, I just knew the crude version of communications, not the strategic forms of communications. Then lastly, be open to learning. Learning never stops. Learning through networks, learning through short courses, learning through experience, failing and failures. That is what's going to make you as a very good communications person. And for our field as comms, learning never stops.
It doesn't.
It does not stop. There are some books that I had to read and all these resources, which I still constantly read because I need to also check myself.
Yeah.
And learning also even goes to the point of you having a comms buddy.
Yes.
Someone that you can always share your problems with. Like for me, even in my career at this point,
Yes.
however much people have been saying that I'm probably good at writing,
Yes.
I cannot send out my writing when someone hasn't looked at it. Why? Because I know that probably a couple of things have changed and I'm not able to see that until someone tells me that, by the way, this is not the language that they use anymore. And for us in development communications, language is very sensitive.
That's true.
And you need to know that you can't say anything that you want unless, I mean, we have been in this development of messages, and you try to develop messages until you get a call and say that this is actually very wrong.
Listen, it's like new things come up.
Every year.
You cannot use this word. You cannot. So you need to be updated.
Exactly.
You really need that checking system.
It does not stop.
Yeah.
However much, even when you become a head of department, that is even when you need everyone.
Yeah.
So always be open to learning.
Yeah.
And for me, those are the key things that a young communications professional needs to be able to understand, that could take you from point A to point B.
Oh my God, this has been a very insightful conversation. And thank you so much, Bata, for sharing your knowledge.
Always a pleasure.
The people that you've been mentoring this year are so lucky to have you. And I hope the people who have been watching, all of you guys who have been watching this podcast, I hope you've learned a thing or two. For me, I have learned from... we need to be willing to learn even in our discomforts, because this is when we are most innovative. This is when we are most creative. There's a time I went to cover something in a refugee camp, and they arrested us. And this is when I got to know that before you work in a refugee camp, you need some kind of license. You need, the authorization, but you need, there are some people who are very aware. And again, this is when the checking comes in. Check with your friend. Hey, I'm going to the refugee camp. What do you think I need to do? What should I prepare? How should I prepare? And again, there are many platforms like YouTube where you can just go and check, I'm preparing for this. Maybe AI, any other platform. There are different websites where you can just check, I'm doing ABCD, what should I know?
Yeah.
And just check those platforms. So for me, when I went to this refugee camp, when I went in, I was like, no, the organization, we have consent already. We've been working here. We've been supporting people here. And then I took out my camera and started taking pictures. Ooh, and they took a camera, told me to delete. No consent forms. So, and it would have been just something as simple as, okay, let me call my colleague in this organization, and they need to tell me, what should I do?
Yeah.
What should I know? So I thank you so much, Bata.
Always a pleasure.
I hope we've learned a lot from this, and we're going to see you in our next as we hear from someone who has experienced some of these things, the challenges that you're facing, and they'll also share how they've navigated some of this. Bata seems to have had a smoother road. She says that his people understood comms, but we thank you so much, and see you on our next episode.